even just a matter of like, appreciate the things you have. Yes, it's true, appreciate the things you have, but appreciate them also largely because those are the things that can get you the things that you want. Just make sure that the things you want are the things that are worth directing your life towards. How about that? Be careful that you don't direct your life towards the things that aren't worthy of you. There are things out there that are not worthy of your attention and all of your focus. When you do that, you're wasting your life. You're wasting your time. If you're wasting your time, that means you're wasting your life. Instead, use the things that you have to get the things that are worthy of you. So figure out what those things are. What they are, I don't know in your life. You got to figure that out for yourself. I can't do that much. But once you figure it out, then reflect and figure out what things you have that can help you get there. Don't hyper-focus on the things you don't have, but focus on the things that you do have and use them, utilize them. So sometimes you'll repeat something that you don't even realize is a lie. But I did say that he's an economist. So he deals with economics, he deals with money matters, money issues, government issues. So when he's saying when the people want the impossible, only liars can satisfy. Think about the kinds of impossible things that people want. We want to be taken care of, maybe. Maybe we want to believe let's see, well, think about the kind of promises that politicians make. We're going to give you all of this free stuff, and you're not going to end up having to pay for it. We like that idea. We're like, oh wow, so I can get we can get like new bridges and new roads, or we can get college paid for. I mean, I guess we can think back to just look what happened during the pandemic. There was this promise that was made, like we're going to shut everything down, everybody stays home, which means there's going to be very little economic activity going on. The only places that are kept open are like Walmart, Target, which, surprise, surprise, giant multinational corporations, billion-dollar corporations, they're kept open. So what ends up happening is all the money that would have gone to all those small businesses are now redirected towards those multi-billion-dollar corporations. And if we had stopped and thought about it for just 2 or 3 seconds, and I mean us, the people who institute these policies, obviously they stop and think about it for more than 2 or 3 seconds, and they realize what the effect is going to be. But think about how gullible we would have had to have been, and I know lots of people like this, and you probably know lots of people like this, who were told, well, stay home, and then we'll send you a check, for it. And we just thought, wow, free money. And of course, the check that we got was nowhere near what the check would have been otherwise if we had gone to work. For some people, like if you earned minimum wage, it was more than what you were getting working minimum wage. So those people were happy about it. But think about how impossible that is. So you don't have to work, you don't have to produce anything, and then we're just going to send you a bunch of money. Where's that money come from? Don't worry about it. We're just going to send you the money. And then we think like, wow, that's so great, free money. Now, is there such a thing as free money? Well, of course not. Of course not. So what ends up happening is, fast forward to today, and I'm sure you guys have parents and people you know who complain about how expensive everything is. This is why everything is so much more expensive, because we brought a massive amount of inflation upon ourselves, which means that if you just print out more money and then send it out, the value of your dollar goes way down. It's not worth as much. It's like supply and demand. You produce a whole bunch of them, and all of a sudden now these things are not worth anything. That's why gas is over twice as expensive as it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. That's why food prices are 30% higher than they used to be. Now those people who are very wealthy, is it hurting them at all? No, not at all. And that was almost the promise that we were made. We're going to take a bunch of money from the rich people and give it to everybody else. And people were like, yeah, that's right. Rich people aren't hurting at all. Rich people are rich. That's kind of the definition of being a rich person. And so who is hurting? The people who thought that they were going to be helped, but didn't really think too much about it. Because if you think about it, you realize, wow, there's no such thing as a free lunch. This is going to come back and harm us in some way. And this is, what I'm telling you here isn't controversial, it's pretty objective. Everyone who studies these things kind of knows this. So what you have to do, if you people who want the impossible, is you have to lie to them and tell them that the impossible is possible. Now sometimes it's a lie that we tell without even really meaning to, without even thinking of it as a lie. Here's a lie that I'm sure all of us have heard before, and some of you maybe still hear this lie. You can do anything if you put your mind to it. You can be anything in the world you want to be. Some of you have heard this lie before. It's not true. You can't be anything that you want to be. Jazz, how tall are you? How tall are you? I'm going to ask, I know you can handle it. How tall are you? 4 what?
8.
4'8". Okay, I thought you were 4'11", so she's 4'8". Is Jazz ever going to play in the NBA? No. No. I'm sorry. Is Jazz ever even going to play in the WNBA? No. No. Why? Because she was born that size. By the way, that was one of the reasons that I look back at professional baseball. I was told by one of my college coaches I was too small to play professional baseball. And that's why it pisses me off now. I'll watch baseball games and they'll have a guy coming up to bat who's like 5'9". I'm like, damn it, that's how tall I am. These guys who, back then there was only one guy in the majors who was 5'9". Now there's a whole bunch of them. These guys in the majors who are like 5'7", 5'8". At the time we were told it was an impossibility. So you might think like, oh, so it was possible. Yeah, but there are no 5'8". There's no 5'1" guys in playing Major League Baseball. That's not a possibility. There are certain things that you're limited and you're stopped from being able to do. As I told you before, your number one predictor of your success in life is your IQ. If you're born with an average IQ is 100. If you're born with an IQ of 85, you're probably not going to be a general in the Air Force. Probably. Doesn't mean no, actually I will say that. It is impossible. You will not be a general in the Air Force. If you are born with spina bifida, which means that your legs don't work, you're never going to be a Navy SEAL. You're never going to be a professional hockey player. You're probably not going to be a dancer. But so often we get hung up on those very few things. Like I was just talking to somebody, one of my former students from a couple of years ago was telling me about a friend of his who recently tried to harm himself. Long story. And he was telling me that this friend of his gets hung up on the things that he does not have. Like he sees other people around who have relationships and he's always like, hey, how come I can't find one for myself? And why is it that he can't find one for himself? There's probably lots of reasons if we were to examine it. But my friend told me if you look at his overall life, though, he's got pretty much everything else that you might think a person would want. They got obviously at least one parent who's highly involved in their life. They've got food to eat, shelter. They've got people around them who care enough, and yet this person tries to harm themselves. Why? Because one of the reasons is because we get so hyper focused on like the one or two things that we don't have. And we miss out on all of the things that we do have. There are some things in your life that you will never be able to do. And anybody who tells you otherwise is probably trying to sell you something. But having said that, there are so many things in your life that you probably don't even realize that you're highly capable of doing. In other words, we shut ourselves off in our minds like, oh, I could never do this. Like I know that like a lot of my former students, they'll end up going to like a trade school to be like a medical technician or a nurse's assistant. And sometimes I'll ask that person, why not a nurse? Why a nurse's assistant? Why not just go all the way and become like the person? And a lot of people I talk to, they just don't have it in their heads that that's even a possibility. It's like, well, a nurse, that takes a lot of schooling, that takes a lot of, I go, well, why don't you do it? I just don't know if I could do it. Of course you could do it. It's one of the reasons I try to remind you guys, remember, every teacher you've ever had, every substitute you've ever had has a college degree. Even that sub who comes in and can't work the smart board, they don't even know how to turn it on, even though there's an on button right there. Remember, that person has a college degree, which means you too could get a college degree. And some people still have it in their heads that it's an impossibility, it's outside the scope of possibilities. But there's so much within your scope of possibility. But we tend to focus, excuse me, we tend to focus on the idea of, well, I'll never play in the NBA. Or I'll never, I'll never be a general in the Air Force. Yeah, but that's like 2 jobs, man. Think about the literally tens of thousands of other jobs that you could possibly do. They're not beyond your reach. We just focus though too much on the things that are outside of our reach. It's like unless something is everything, we feel like we have nothing. It's like students sometimes, like what separates us from the students over in Coronado or La Jolla, and often will say things like, well, they have money. Yeah, but what does that buy you though? Does money buy you stuff? Of course. But here's something that money doesn't buy you. Money doesn't buy you resilience. Money doesn't buy you tenacity. Money doesn't buy you the ability to struggle through hardships and come out stronger on the other end. And I would bet that most of us have done more of that than the students over in La Jolla and Coronado have done. Yeah, they've got money, but they don't have resilience. Yeah, we've got tenacity, but we don't have money. Yeah, we both have things that are on our side, but we tend to focus on the thing that we don't have. The good news is that they probably don't even realize they don't have resilience or tenacity or the ability to struggle and come out better. The one thing that we're missing, we know we're missing. And the good thing is that you can get that eventually. You can get that eventually. In other words, tenacity, hard work, the ability to struggle, that will get you money. Money won't get you tenacity and the ability to struggle and become better. So the good news is that you have the thing that will give you the thing that you want, or at least the thing that we think we want. But they have the thing that we think we want, but that won't give them the thing that we have. And so focus more on the things that you have that will help you get the thing. And it isn't even just a matter of appreciate the things you have. Yes, that's true. Appreciate the things you have. But appreciate them also largely because those are the things that can get you the things that you want. Just make sure that the things you want are the things that are worth directing your life towards. Make sure that you're not directing your life towards things that you don't really want or that aren't worthy of you. How about that? Be careful that you don't direct your life towards the things that aren't worthy of you. There are things out there that are not worthy of your attention and all of your focus. When you do that, you're wasting your life. You're wasting your time. If you're wasting your time, that means you're wasting your life. Instead, use the things that you have to get the things that are worthy of you. So figure out what those things are. What they are, I don't know, in your life. You got to figure that out for yourself. I can't do that much. But once you figure it out, then reflect and figure out what things you have that can help you get there. Don't hyper-focus on the things you don't have, but focus on the things that you do have and use them, utilize them. Doesn't matter how smart you are if you don't use it. Doesn't matter how much tenacity you have if you don't use it. So use the things that you have. Questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Friday.